For today's ethanol myth busting video, we're going to talk about fuel lines. September 26th, I put 3 fuel lines in 3 fuels to see what would happen. Okay? Everybody makes these claims against ethanol that it's going to harden the fuel line, it's going to varnish the fuel line, it's going to eat the fuel line. All these claims, some of them even contradict themselves, which is kind of funny. Anyways, first fuel line I put in there is this black one. This was purchased at Menards. It is a Arnold's fuel line. Had the same code on it as Briggs & Stratton fuel lines, so they are very, very popular. Next fuel line is this yellowish one, which I purchased from Napa. This was the only one they offered, so I'm sure it's very popular again. And the final one is this clear one. Another Arnold's fuel line from Menards. See a lot of these clear ones all over the place. So, before I get any farther, I want to talk about the fuels. This is regular gas. This is non-ethanol gas. This would be all your other gases that you can buy aftermarket. And this is E85. A lot of people think that to go from regular gas with 10% ethanol to go to E0, they just take out the ethanol. Okay, let's make an elementary level observation. E85 is clear as water. Ethanol is clear as water. Okay? Regular gas is quite yellow. E0 has a very, very different color to it. If they're just taking out the ethanol, what's the yellow? What's that? Does that have a role in the fuel line quality or some of these claims? Keep that in mind. It's very important. The other thing I'm going to do is, I have this board here. 3 fuel lines on the left. I've never seen fuel. I'm going to have weights. They're in the nail. I'll put a nail on the end. And I'll put these burrs and washers that I have pre-weighted on them. And then I will do it for each fuel as we go. So, I'm going to do the black one on here first. The one that has never seen fuel. These nails are all marked, so they go in the same distance. These burrs weigh 16 grams a piece. And I want to get enough on there so that it has a slight angle up. Maybe one more and then we'll have an angle where it won't slide so much. Okay. Angled up just enough. I'll put a couple more washers on there. Put 3 on there. Okay, that's there. The nuts won't slide on the nail anymore. It's angled up just enough. So, we will start with the regular gasoline cap. I have also another fuel line here that has never seen fuel. Holes look about the same, so I won't take them to the digital caliper, but we will definitely put it on the weight. This was regular gas. Put it on there. Stick it on the tape just enough to stop it. Put the nail in there. We will put on 4 burrs. Just like the other one. And we will put on, well, this one doesn't want to stay. But that's alright. It's not hardened. It's about the same. The 3 little washers wouldn't make that big a difference. That fuel line is not affected by the regular gasoline too bad. So, we will put the weight on the next fuel line I will select. Nail in there. And we'll start with burr. I think that's all we'll need on that one. That one's got the right angle I'm looking for, just slightly up. We'll take it out of here. This one has got more of a kind of varnish looking. That's a very common claim. It'll be varnished. It's not shrunken yet. Visually quite the same. So, this one we'll try to get it to stay. We'll put this one on here. Put our nail. And look at that. It's actually harmed it and made it weaker. So it's definitely doing some damage to it. It's got the same weight and it's suffering on there so far. So we will take the last fuel line out of the regular gas. We'll compare here. And this one, the outside is definitely shrunk some. I have the non-fuel one pre-measured. That one is at 0.1865. So this one is at 0.1760. So it shrunk a little bit. So I'll put this back on there. Try to put these back on here. Hopefully these stay together for a while. Actually, I think I might tape it quick so that it does stay on there. Because we want to see what's going on. Back on there. And we'll put our washer back on there. Keep it on there. Hopefully that one stays too. So we need to do our weight on our non-fuel one. One burr. Oh, two is going to be too many. It's just going to twist too. This one is about the same. It hasn't hardened. But it is definitely varnished. There, we'll see if we can get this one too. They're not going to cooperate, which is alright. So, we'll move on to the next fuel. Hope that would go a lot better. Move on to the E0. And we will take out the first fuel line. The yellow one. Once again, quite varnished. Not shrunken though, but it is varnished. So, over here to the E0 spot, put that on, put our nail on, put our nut. Once again, slightly sagging, so it weakened the fuel line a little bit. That was in the E0. We will take out the black one. We'll compare it to the other black one. very similar, no damage. I won't take it to the caliper. Put this one up here. And we will put the nail in it. Now on top we have 4 nuts and 3 washers. About the same. That's what people expect with non-ethanol gas, that it wouldn't damage it. So, we will move up. Oh, I have one more for you. A little one. We will compare this. Close to the same. The middle, the inside actually look like it's shrunken a little bit, but it's pretty close. I'm not going to put it on the caliper. Put this one here. That's about the same too. It's pretty hard when they're that small. It's okay, so right now, I'll try to put this one here down again. That's probably the most common one. So actually, right now, I'm trying to get this one going too. That little one's giving me too much trouble to monkey with. Need 4 nuts. It's not gonna hold. I'm just gonna have to hold it to get a visual and then let it go. Pull a nail out here. Put some washers on. And we'll take a look across. And this one's sagging a little bit. That one's the same. Both of these are sagging compared to the no fuel. And the little ones, there's no weight difference to really tell yet, but they're both very varnished. So I'm going to take this one down because this one properly. So both of them are varnished right now, somewhat. And right now, the yellow one, both of them are sagging. The non-ethanol one is actually varnished more on the yellow fuel line. So now we will go to the E85. And if the ethanol did the damage to make these actually sag more, the black one's not really going to show any difference. The E0 sags just a little bit more, but not much. So if there's any considerable difference, if it's the ethanol, it should be shown right here. I'll take this black one out. We'll compare it. No visual difference. It's not shrunk. I'll put it up here. More over there now. I'll steal some burrs from this one. And I'll put 4 burrs on there. And we'll put 3 washers on there. 2, 3. Now we'll look across. And it's the same as the no fuel one, and just a hair higher than the non-ethanol one. No damage whatsoever, looks the same, did not shrink, not discolored, it's not visually eaten away as many people would claim. Let's look at the next fuel line out of here. This is the common one. Now, a lot of people will tell you that ethanol varnishes your fuel lines. I'm not seeing any varnish on that. Okay, that claim is now dead. Ethanol does not varnish your fuel line. It's a solvent. It's used for cleaning. This claim never had any foothold in the beginning. So we'll look at them. There's no visual shrinkage on either end, no visual damage whatsoever. So we'll put it on here. And I'm thinking that this yellow one is going to be our best bet because the other two are not much damage and hard to really tell the difference. So we'll stick this on there. Look at that. The E85 fuel line is holding up better and stronger than the other fuels. Okay? These claims that ethanol is going to eat your fuel line and weaken it, that's exactly the opposite right there. Look at the same weight, same nail. These two are sagging. This one is much closer to the no fuel one. Okay? So things aren't adding up for the non-ethanol community currently. Let's take out this last fuel line out of the E85. Come on. There we are. Once again, no varnishing. That claim died about 5 minutes ago. Okay, ethanol does not varnish your fuel lines. There is no visual shrinkage or eating of it or anything like that. So we'll put this one on there. We'll see what we can do with this fuel line here. I'm not very happy with it. See if we can get some weight going here. Put this one here. Put another nut there. Oh, it's too much. There's little washers here. Okay. Now we'll do the regular gas. And we'll put a washer on there. Look at that. Once again, the E85 fuel line is in much better shape than the regular gas fuel line. Okay, things are not adding up for the non-ethanol community currently. This fuel line won, this fuel line won, and this rubber fuel line was way too much heavy duty to be able to tell a difference in only 50 days from the three fuels. So, this definitely proves my point here. Ethanol does not eat fuel lines, it doesn't weaken them, and it does not varnish them. So this is where things start to get interesting. I have some things here I want to cover with you. What did it? When you ask people what's in regular gas, they'll tell you, well, 10% ethanol is in there. Okay, what else is in there? Gas from oil. Okay, that makes sense. What else? I don't know. Okay, this is where the walls for big oils claims start crumbling. You have to have additives and aromatics and all these other things in gasoline to meet emission, performance, and octane rating. Okay? In the mid-90s, early 2000s even, big oil and oil companies in general were pressured to clean up gasoline emissions. So what they come up with is reformulated gasoline. Okay? Instead of adding ethanol to clean up fuel, you've seen my burn video, ethanol burns much cleaner. Instead of adding that, they decided to add a whole handful of aromatics that are hurtful and damaging to plastics, seals, and fuel lines. Okay, a lot of these are benzene additives and some other things. I have a little clip here I want to read to you. Around 25% or more of gasoline right now is some form of benzene. They attack plastics, seals, and fuel lines. They emit carbon deposits, varnish plastics, and due to an incomplete combustion, more detergents are added to your gasoline just to keep your car running. Half of those or more were claims that ethanol were made, okay? The reason that people are having a little bit better success with E0 than regular gas is because they're not in there. They're replaced, okay? They're replaced, they're lessened. That explains the color change I pointed out right away. That explains the slight performance difference that people are having. That explains the price difference. These oil companies can't use these harmful aromatics in non-ethanol, because then people would have issues. Okay, they got the whole country convinced that it's ethanol eating your fuel lines. I didn't find it there. So what is it? What are they? I have these numbers here. You can Google this yourself. Fire up Google, type in this word for word, Flint Hills Resources, MSDS, which stands for Material Safety Data Sheet. MSDS triple S Petroleum, it's a PDF, will be the first one. Click on it, scroll down, you'll see these exact numbers I'm about to read. This is what is in your gasoline, okay? Some of these are the chemical industry byproducts. They're in there to clean up emissions, to keep people happy, and big oil. Okay, they use them because they've got the whole convincing it's ethanol eating your fuel lines. 1 to 15% xylene and toluene, up to 10% ethyl alcohol, which is ethanol, up to 7% hexane, up to 3% trimethylbenzene, up to 2.3% benzene, up to 2% ethyl benzene, and up to 1% cyclohexane, naphthalene, and cumene. Now these are general numbers, okay? Some sites even cite legal limits. Companies have tested gasoline, and these numbers have been above the legal limit. Of course they are. It's way cheaper than gas from oil. They've got the whole country convinced it's ethanol eating your fuel lines and weakening them and varnishing them and all this other stuff when it's not. So they don't worry about the percentages whatsoever. They don't care. We will call them B-Tex additives, okay? Since benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene make up the most harmful, especially benzene. You can buy these all separate in home improvement stores, paint stores, all these different stores. You can buy a jug of benzene, you can buy all these separate. Do a fuel test with them. Drop one of them fuel lines in a pure benzene jar and tell me what happens, okay? It'll be ate very quickly. Of course, they are lessened out in the E0 fuel. That explains the color difference and everything else I explained. Price difference as well. Why is race gas through the roof? They have to get out the cheap garbage and, unfortunately, the ethanol to get the high octanes. Ethanol is way cheaper than any other additive. That's why it's far superior. You know, it's kind of funny. Put fuel lines to a test, or a gas in a test in the first place. It's such a foreign thought, you know. Why is it? Let's think back to all the science, chemistry, shop classes. Did we spend a minute doing this, just 1 minute? No, every one of us use these fuels to get to school. None of us know what's even in them. We were more worried about slicing off some sodium, tossing in some water, and watching some bubbles. We don't even know what's in our gasoline. These aromatics right here, benzene is cancerous, okay? And this is in your regular gas right now. Why do you think we didn't do it in school? Who's big oil's best friend? The government. Who tells the schools what to learn? The state or the government, whatever way you want to word it, okay? I've asked you to watch Pulp the movie on Netflix before, or borrow the DVD from me, and you'll understand why big oil and the government go hand in hand. It's not rocket science. Another thing I want to touch about the emissions from ethanol compared to gasoline. The emissions from ethanol were collected by last year's oxygen-producing corn. That's pretty cool. The emissions from oil have been trapped underground for thousands of years. You watched my burn video. That's a good place for them to stay. They are nasty. They've got cancerous garbage added to them. I want nothing to do with regular gas anymore whatsoever. I want to highlight some ethanol production highlights. Ethanol is ethyl alcohol, grain alcohol. It's the exact same alcohol, the exact same fluid that's in your alcoholic beverages, your vodka, your whiskey, your beer, all that stuff. It's the exact same thing. Okay, it's very important to remember. We can store 40% ethanol in vodka bottles, but we can't make it run in our fuel lines? No, I didn't buy it from the beginning. Some corn ethanol facts I want to highlight. From 1 bushel of corn, a lot of farms around here can pull over 200 bushels an acre. From 1 bushel of corn, we get 2.8 gallons of ethanol, 18 pounds of high-protein animal feed, which is called distiller's grains. So we're getting feed and fuel from something that was grown for feed in the first place. Okay, there is no food versus fuel debate. Most corn's grown for feed in the first place. We can get fuel and feed from it. 19 pounds of CO2 for industrial use, cold storage, dry ice, carbonated beverages, whatever they want to use it for. 1.2 pounds of corn oil, and a few other small things that they get out of it. There was there was an article in I think it was the Land paper, the Agri News the other day. A company in Nebraska patented a machine to pelletize distillers grains. Okay, much longer storage, easier transporting, adds a huge value to the byproduct of corn ethanol. But we can make ethanol from so much more than corn. Just in the last 2 months, there was an article published that scientists found a way to turn ethanol out of CO2. So we can capture CO2 and make ethanol fuel out of it. How sweet is that? But many biomasses, including corn stover, grasses, and cattails, can make ethanol. Cattails can make 7 times the ethanol as corn can. Switchgrass, sweet sorghum, mesquite, buffalo gourds, prickly pear, all these different kinds. Prickly pear is pretty cool because you can grow ethanol fuel in dry regions around the world, poor countries, whatever you want, and make cheap, renewable, cleaner fuel from it. I also want to touch on this whole E10 max thing, okay? All these motors, vehicles, all this thing will say you can't go over 10% ethanol. Okay, why? Why can't you go E15? What changes? Why can't you go E20? Why can't you go E30? Okay? Why can't you pull up to a blender pump and pump E30 in your non-flex fuel vehicle? I want anybody to explain to me, and you take a fuel tank that is E10 approved. I just proved to you that ethanol is pretty easy to make compatible compared to the other trash that's in gasoline. I want you to think about a fuel tank. That 10% ethanol could be anywhere in that fuel tank at any time. Okay? It has to be compatible to ethanol. There's no such thing as a 10% waterproof boot. Either it is or it isn't. I just proved to you ethanol is not the issue in the first place. So this whole E10 max, this blend wall is all big oil garbage. It's a lie. It's supposed to scare you, okay? It's a lie. Brazil runs higher blends of ethanol in everything. E30, E40 and more. Small engines, everything, okay? They run it in everything. There's many problems with this B-tax that's added in gasoline. Carbon deposits, gumming up fuel lines, varnishing, incomplete combustion, okay? I want you to go to your vehicle manufacturer, your lawnmower manufacturer, your four-wheeler, your dirt bike, anything. I want you to go to them and say, hey, what's this B-tax? I hope they know. Is it compatible? Are these fuel lines compatible to B-tax? Get back to me with the answer for that. I'm very excited to know if they are B-tax compatible. It's a whole array of chemicals. That's pretty hard to make compatible compared to ethanol. They're not, okay? I also want to talk about engine optimization with ethanol fuels. Every engine out there is optimized for gas. Your flex fuel vehicles, your car, your small engines, everything. When you change the plugs, compression ratio, the air to fuel ratio, the timing, you can make ethanol fuels perform right up there with gas for mileage. Ethanol has much more power than gas in the first place. And the computer on a non-flex fuel vehicle can easily change a lot of these at E30 fuel pretty easily. Okay, if you have a carburetor model like a lawnmower, slowly introduce higher blends of ethanol like E15 or E20, adjust the air to fuel ratio since ethanol has more air, and voila. You've got a fuel, the ethanol will keep the varnishing from happening when you get above the 10%, and it will run a lot cooler and a lot longer. Major manufacturers say that 10% ethanol is fine. Briggs & Stratton, Harley, Indian motorcycles even say E15 is fine. Okay, they warranty that from 2014 forward. Okay, these changes are getting going. Explain to me how Harley-Davidson motors and motorcycles can go to Brazil, run E30, and all they do is the air-to-fuel ratio screw on the carb. They run fine. Give 3 tanks of higher blends of ethanol in any motor, and it'll clean out the garbage, and it'll run much better. I also want you to check out Glacier Lakes Energy Facebook page, which is doing a huge E30 study on non-flex fuel vehicles. They run it problem-free. They've got all the computer diagnostics hooked up to the motors. The difference is all in the computer. okay? Putting in 1/4 tank of E85 in any size fuel tank, 1/4, will result you in E29, which is 93 octane. Okay, I'm telling you right now, there is not one E10 approved small engine vehicle or anything else that could not run E20 or E30. Try it. I know many guys that have ran it for 3 or 4, 5, 6 years or more. I have started this summer running higher blends of ethanol because I understand. I do these tests, I watch videos, I research. Okay, it's not the ethanol that's the problem. There's 3 big reasons why people fear ethanol, okay? And I'm going to do them in order of occurrence. Number 1, they fear it in the regular gasoline. I just proved to you, it's not the culprit for fuel line problems. It's not the culprit for varnishing. It's not the culprit for gumming up this stuff, okay? That's BTEX that's doing that. Ethanol is a solvent. It's used for cleaning. It's not going to gum up anything. If it does gum up something when you use E85, that's because it cleaned it out from the fuel line, okay? That's the second part I want to get to. People will say, oh, I put E85 in my vehicle and it ran like crap, or I put E85 in my whatever and it ran like crap. Well, let's stop and think about what it did. It did not ruin it. Yes, it probably stuttered and sputtered for a while. What it did was it cleaned all the varnish, all the carbon deposits, the gum deposits from the cancerous garbage that's in regular gasoline. It cleaned it all out at once, and it temporarily clogged up some sensors and stuff like that. Explain to me how I started running E30 in my 2000 F-150, never had a hiccup, went up to E50. I eventually bought this kit so I could run straight E85. This keeps the check engine light off, and it adjusts to the fuel as ethanol blends change, okay? And it helps with cold starting. I didn't change any parts. You can look this up, change2e85.com, look it up online, okay? They've sold a lot. So, first fear is 10% that's in regular gasoline. I proved that to be a lie, okay? These people have not done a fuel test. They have not done a burn test. They have not ran E30 in small engines. The second fear is that I put it in and it just ruined it and it messed it up. No, it didn't. It cleaned out the garbage. If you would slowly introduce it, a couple gallons each tank, add a couple gallons in the next tank, it'll clean your vehicle out, it'll run much better and longer, and you won't have this issue that everybody whines about. And the third is there's not very many people that do this, but they'll mod their car to run and they'll put it on an E85 tune. Okay, this is to tune their car so that it has to get E85. It can't adjust to the different, because pump E85 from the pump can be like 51% to 75 to 80%. So it can vary way too much. So if you have an E85 tune, either you have to use race E85, which is actually E85, or you have to have a flex fuel sensor so that you can run pump E85, okay? People can have issues if they run E85 tune and just run pump E85. It's not, there's things that'll get messed up over a long period of time. So those are the 3 big fears. Now, E10 has been around since the late 80s. So everything shortly thereafter has been E10 approved. So, like I said, if it's E10, it's approved for more. The EPA has approved 2001 and newer vehicles to run on E15. These blender pumps, like this one here that goes E20, E30, E40, and E85, these should be at every fuel station. Let people choose what they want to fuel up with, okay? That's a big thing in Pump the Movie. I really want you to watch that. E15, everybody should be running that in their 2001 and newer. I just proved that ethanol is a superior fuel compared to gasoline. A lot of the things that make up gasoline. Now, when you have fear, people fearing the 10% ethanol in regular gasoline, there's going to be products that feed on that fear, okay? I want to explain to you how these are snake oils. These are the only anti-ethanol product I'll ever buy, but I will gladly spend a few dollars to make these out as the lying fools that they are. This first one is Ethanol Shield, with a clever name. And one of the top claims that it says, combustion cool technology reduces engine heat due to ethanol blended fuels. Okay, contact a modded car guy, contact NASCAR, they run E15. Contact IndyCar, they run E85. Ask them how much hotter E85 burns, or ethanol in general burns. It burns cooler. That's a known fact. That's lie number one on this one. Another thing I want to point out is, remember back to my water video when I told you, cool, dry, out of sunlight place to store your fuel, you won't have issues. It talks about being a stabilizer or storage. After putting this into your fuel, it tells you to store in a cool, dry place and avoid direct sunlight. That's exactly what I told you in the water video. So this is good. This is telling you to pour it in there and then fix your storage issues. Okay, this is a joke. Now, this one here is sold everywhere. I've seen this everywhere, okay? You have a lot of questions to ask your mechanic about these claims because they're garbage. I just proved they're garbage. First one, stabilized gasoline. Any fuel that you plan on keeping for over 6 months, I suggest a stabilizer. Okay, we can store 30 to 40% ethanol or alcohol in bottles, but they're going to tell you that 10%, we can store the bottles for decades, and they're going to tell you that 10% in gasoline, you can't store it. BTEX chemicals do not store very well at all since they are aggressive and they attack plastics, okay? That's where the storage issues come from. Once again, they're not in the E0 at the same levels of the E10, okay? That explains that difference. The next one, removes gum, carbon, and varnish deposits. Ethanol is a solvent. It does not gum up anything. It's a cleaner. That's a complete lie. Carbon deposits. There is no carbon deposits from ethanol. You watched my burn video with E85. This is a complete lie. And varnish? Really? I just proved that it's a complete lie. Ethanol does not varnish up anything. It's a cleaner. Okay? Helps rejuvenate stale fuel. Okay, let's talk about this 87 octane fuel that you're getting. Before they add the ethanol to it, it's like 84 or 85 octane. It's pretty crappy fuel, okay? Ethanol has an octane rating of like 115, 113. E85 is like 105 to 110, okay? They're using the ethanol to improve the grade of the gasoline. Okay, before they put ethanol in, it is trash. It's junk, okay? You don't want anything to do with it. And the last one, it says, helps prevent phase separation. They're using the two big words of phase separation to scare you. That occurs when water enters your fuel system. Okay, I showed you in my water video that ethanol helps water issues. Okay? Phase separation has, you shouldn't even talk about it if you have any idea how to store your fuel. So this right here, all these claims, garbage. Yes, they may happen with ethanol blended regular gasoline, but they are not ethanol's fault whatsoever. You should be running E20 or E30 in all E10 approved engines. Your vehicle, your lawnmower, your four-wheeler, all of them. Introduce it slowly, you'll clean out the garbage, and it'll run a lot longer and cleaner. Okay, you hear all these motors, oh, it's getting tired. Yeah, I would get tired too if I was clogged up with cancerous, toxic garbage. Anybody would. Okay? Higher blends of ethanol keep that trash out, keeps it running. It's better octane, okay? Look in this blender pump. Now this one doesn't have the rating, but E30 is like 94 octane. It'll kick gas's rear all day long. Okay, I've put on almost 20,000 miles in my 2000 non-flex fuel vehicle. And all these claims that people are making haven't happened yet. I'm patiently waiting, watching the miles go up. They haven't happened yet, okay? So I hope this clears up all the issues about ethanol in your fuel. I proved the varnishing is a complete joke. Look at what the garbage in regular gasoline did to the fuel line compared to the E85. Okay, this one here, the E85, is the exact same as the that's never hit fuel. So you have a lot of questions to ask. Everything you've ever heard about ethanol should be tested and proven for yourself. Don't listen to a mechanic or don't listen to a salesman or anything. If you have a flex fuel vehicle, I highly suggest you running or blending E85. It's going to run a lot cooler, it's going to run a lot cleaner, and it's going to run a lot cheaper. I've talked about all the mileage, I've talked about all that stuff. So, big oil, where you at? I just proved the biggest accusation you've ever made against ethanol as a complete lie. Okay? It does not eat your fuel lines. Never has. Okay? I exposed your reformulated gasoline for the cancerous, toxic garbage that it is. These additives can easily be added or eliminated with ethanol. You get up in the E30, E40 range, you don't need the additives. And the ethanol combats the varnishing issues and the carbon deposits and the gum issues that the BTEX additives give you. Ethanol has always been the superior fuel. It's been the superior fuel since Henry Ford made it work in the 30s. Okay? I'm out. It's over. Done.